to summarize my father in a 3-minute speech, because he was way too big, way too generous, way too funny, way too demanding, way too Republican, and way too wonderful to summarize, but I'm going to give it a shot. See, he was a storyteller. He had some great stories that he would share with us, and he had a tendency of telling us the same stories over and over again. So in the tradition of my father, the storyteller, I'm going to tell you a couple of stories that I remember from my experiences in my life in the Fojo household. I'm going to tell you about the time that he threw me a birthday party that quite literally could be the most awesome birthday party ever thrown for an 8th grade girl. He rented a bus, and not one of those dumb yellow school buses. I mean, it was a charter bus, and it had a bathroom on it, and everything. And he took my entire 8th grade class to Disneyland. He told me it cost about $750, and I started laughing, because that's about what it would cost for my family of 4 to go now. I think Carlos is still a little bitter about that, because he didn't get a birthday party like that. My father also adored going to my brother's games and practices, but he, like a champ, endured a few dance recitals for his baby girl. And after every show, he would lead the little ducklings in their tutus across the street from the theater to the Foster's Freeze and buy everybody chocolate-dipped cones. And there we were in our costumes with the ice cream dripping down our hands, eating ice cream, and my dad was the coolest because he was buying it. I now understand why he did that, and it was because he wanted the ice cream. He could care less about us, but he wanted the ice cream. And one day at Farrell's, he did eat a trough. And my godsister Annette and I literally hid under the table while the people from Farrell's brought him his I made a pig of myself at Farrell's ribbon. Anybody who came to the house would also know that you would almost instantly be offered a bowl of ice cream. It was an excuse to eat, really. And I think the Fojos believe that ice cream is a food group, because my tia Regina still has a milkshake every night. He actually won a 50-50 raffle at a Servite football game one night. The look on his face, it was precious. I wish I had a camera. He made me go get the money and then bring it back. And when I dropped him off after the game, he handed me $200. And I said, "Hey, what's this for?" And he says, "You know, for driving." He played the lottery religiously. $21, he had his set numbers. And even when he was in the hospital, we had to go to 7-Eleven to buy him his lottery tickets because, you know, he might win. And he was convinced he had won $500. And it turned out to be 26 and 2 replays. But close. He was making his millions the hard way. When we started to attend the football games together, he was torn the day that we went to go see Bosco play Servite, because he didn't know on which side to sit. The joke was that he would sit at the goalpost, and that way he could root for both teams. But he got it straight. He sat on the Servite side. And for future games, I went to pick him up one night. He's dressed in black from head to toe, and he told me he bought himself a new shirt and a new jacket, and he referred to himself as servitized. So he was ready for the future games. You know, there was one time when he showed up to a Servite football game wearing a red beanie, and I didn't know what to do with myself, because it was, you don't wear red to a football game at Servite. So I quickly bought him a Servite beanie the following Monday to make sure that that wouldn't happen again. Even when he was in the hospital bed. He didn't like phone calls, he didn't want people to be calling him, he didn't want people to be bothering him, but he called me for the scores, because he wanted to know what the score was, and sadly this year, not such good news. My father was completely obsessed with the Kardashians. We would sit there at the games, and in the same breath, he would tell you how disgusted he was by them, and then tell you, but wait, listen what happened. So I don't care about the Kardashians. No, wait, listen, this is good. And he would tell you all about the latest dish. For Christmas, what do you get a man who has everything? I mean, that's one thing about my dad is, if he wanted it, he went out and bought it. And one thing that I appreciate about him is he enjoyed life that way. So I thought, I know, I'll do this. I got a small collage frame, a People magazine, cut out all the pictures of the Kardashians I could find, put them in the picture frame, and gave him a picture for Christmas of his other family. And he thought that was hysterical. I scored big on that one. He liked to blow up balloons with helium. And so he would take the grandkids out to the front yard and blow up the balloons with helium, and they would let them go. And it was a big thrill for everybody to let the balloons go. Do you remember? And then they'd watch them in the sky, and then they'd watch them, and they'd watch them, they'd get very small, and when they couldn't see anymore, they'd all go back in the house and do it again. And they'd probably do it 6, 7 times, watching the balloons go up in the sky. And when it came to candy and other treats, again, my father made it very clear what the rules were in his house. We were really concerned about the kids having too much sugar or eating a cookie before dinner. One day, he got really serious, and he looked at me and he said, "You listen. I'm the apple, and I can give them anything I want, so you stay out of it." Every Saturday, they had candy. And my dad, who had been taking medication pretty much his whole life, had collected a few of those medicine bottles. He actually made a little fort out of it, glued them together, made a little building. And he decided that he would use the medicine bottles for the children. So what he did is he would put gummy worms and M&Ms and Kisses and different things in the medicine bottle, and he had them sitting there waiting for the kids to show up. And one day he looked at my children and he said, "Oh, you don't look very good. You look like you need medicine." And so he gave them the bottle of medicine, and they were concerned at first until they realized what was in it. Well, the next visit, Eric walked in and did this. "Hi, Otto. I think I need some medicine," and thus became the tradition of the medicine bottle. It was actually quite pathetic of them, but it was a beautiful relationship that they had. He demanded perfection of me. He loved me despite my shortcomings, but he would notice the one B among the ocean of A's. And he complained that my name was at the bottom of the honor roll. He wishes his name was on the honor roll. But he demanded perfection from himself, and he didn't expect anything less from himself, and he used to joke that he didn't need erasers because he didn't make mistakes. When we were in elementary school, my friend Carrie and I decided that we were going to do the science fair project together, and my father stayed up all night making a balsa wood maze for an albino rat that we were going to train to go through the maze, and I'm happy to report he earned us a B. My father also loved music, and he actually went to the Duran Duran concert the night before I went to the Duran Duran concert, because, he wanted to make sure everything was okay. He took my brother, who at the time was 11, who's never been more embarrassed in his life, and he came to me that night. He bought me posters and the whole thing, and then he said, "Now, I recognized everybody on stage, but who was the girl playing keyboard?" And I had to explain to him that that was, in fact, Nick Rhodes, and not a girl at all. Well, the next day, my friend Lisa and I are going to go to this concert, and he kind of did the, "You better hurry up and get dressed because it'll be here at 5:30. And it will be here? What it? "I rented you a limo." No way. Well, Lisa and I were very excited. She was waving at everybody and thought this was fabulous, and I'd asked him, "Are you coming?" And he said, "Well, I'm paying for it, of course I'm coming, and I get to push the buttons." Oh my goodness, the window, the thing with the windows and the buttons, and he was calling the driver. It was like a kid in a candy store. It was one of the reasons why I think he enjoyed life so much, is because he looked at things, even though he was very serious and very, very concerned with perfection and doing a good job. He enjoyed himself because he looked at things through the eyes of a kid, which is probably why he got along with the grandkids so well. He also went to a Nina Hagen concert and a Frankie Goes to Hollywood concert twice. The Nina Hagen concert, I still don't buy his story. He told me something about, well, I had dropped you guys off and it was raining and we didn't really decide where we were going to meet up afterwards, and so I went to the theater thinking I would run into you, and some guy was selling a ticket, and so I'm there with my friends and I look back, and 8 rows behind me, my father is leaning about as far over as he can, because there's a guy with a big green mohawk sitting right next to him, and you could tell he just didn't want to touch the guy at all. And there he was, at a Nita Hagen concert. I was absolutely mortified. I wouldn't even look at him until we got to the car. I saw him cry 3 times. The first time I saw him cry, he was at home, and he was very upset because he couldn't make payroll that Friday, and he needed to go back and face his employees. This was the first time I ever saw him cry. The second time I saw him cry, it was out of pain after he had an aneurysm repaired. That was a few years back. And I remember telling the nurse, you better give him more because he needs it. Morphine became his friend at the end. With all of the pain that he had, I saw him cry the 3rd time because he was concerned 3 days into this whole ordeal that he was going to leave my mom alone. And I remember looking at him and saying, she's not going to be alone. And he stopped crying after that. On my 21st birthday, we shared a bottle of 1968 Cabernet Sauvignon that he had bought just for that occasion. You know, I drank vodka tonics because he drank vodka tonics, mostly because I didn't know what else to order. I smoked Benson & Hedges cigarettes because he smoked Benson & Hedges cigarettes. And I wanted to be just like him. And if you ask my mother, as she rolls her eyes, she'll tell you I am just like him. His will was unstoppable, and his temper fierce. And any of you who saw that temper, I apologize. When he put his mind to something, that was it. He was going to do it, and that's how he quit smoking. I was pregnant with Lauren, and he just decided he didn't smoke anymore, and that was it. He just didn't, and he didn't after that, and that was 9 years ago. I would ask him for help with my algebra homework, and he would look at me and go, why do you need algebra for that? I can do that without algebra. So I quickly learned I needed to find another tutor. He followed me one night, actually, when I went to a school dance, and he told me afterwards that he sensed something was up because I was actually dressed according to the dress code. And to any of my high school friends sitting in the audience, you know that that didn't happen much. So he knew I was up to something. He said, oh, I'm going to go to the garage. Would anybody like anything to drink? And when he went, he memorized Brian's license plate. So after we'd left for the dance, he waited a while, and then he went through the parking lot of St. Joseph High School looking for the car, and naturally it was not there. So he thought for a minute, and he thought, I know where she went. She went to Nightscape, which is now where the Main Place Mall is. It was a little tiny dance place, and he parked in the parking lot. Here I come, out of Nightscape. He followed us home, and I was grounded for about 9 months after that. He looked in the rearview mirror and he asked me, how was the dance? And I said, fine. We had gone to take pictures and then left. And he said, I followed you. And I looked at him, and he said, you bet, baby. See, this is the beauty of my father, is that he had a criminal mind. Because seriously, the stories from Cuba, it's amazing he wasn't in jail. His checkbook was perfect. He just spoke that language. Again, my brother said he was an accountant by trade, and one night I had been working on this accounting final, and it was the stupid balance sheet, and I'm working on the thing, and I'm $27 off, and I'm crying, and I can't stand it anymore. And I leave it for him, and in about 12 seconds, he just looked at it, and he goes, you transpose these 2 numbers. And I hated him and loved him so much at that moment. For 4 hours, and it took him 12 seconds to figure out what I had done wrong. He always wore religious medals pinned to his undershirt, and he always wore an undershirt. And a short sleeve shirt with 2 pockets, and 2 pens, and a comb. Always. He chaperoned 23 of my high school dances and wondered why I had no boyfriend. When I was a senior, he was even willing to pay my brother's baseball coach to take me to prom. So you know he was completely thrilled when I went with my dear gay friend, Daryl. Eventually he grew to love Daryl. He really did. My mom and dad both loved him very much because they knew that Daryl sincerely loved me. And when it came time for Jeff and I to get married, both of my parents said, he really loves you. And I figured they had been married for 45 years, so they would know, right? My parents celebrated their 58th anniversary on July 1st this past year, and Dad had already fallen a couple of times, so they didn't want to go anywhere to celebrate. And as my father got sicker, I began to notice that he asked for more help, which, again, my dad did not do. He asked me to actually accompany him to a doctor's appointment and to actually walk in, and my mother even said, you got to do that? Because he never lets me do that. And I said, because he likes me best. Little by little, he got weaker and weaker, and it was clear at that point that he was going to need help with pretty much everything. The morning that I called the paramedics to take him to the hospital, he was very angry at me. But after we had gotten there and he had started to feel a little better and a little bit more confident, he thanked me. And he said that you did the right thing. And I think that is the moment that my dad started a very serious journey for him. He had to accept the fact that he couldn't do it on his own. And he had several nurses who he liked very much. One of them that stands out is Audrey, a very short African-American nurse who used to wear these ridiculously bright shirts. And he would comment on how much he liked her shirts, and she would look at him and say, well, I gotta dress sexy for my baby. Loved her. He also introduced himself to one of the nurses as a pain in the butt. He actually told one nurse, and this was one of those moments where I stood there and I said, this is my dad. This is my dad right now. He said, hey, Susan, when I'm good, but when I'm bad, I'm better. Recently, it became clear that the charge nurse was not the one actually giving the orders. It was clearly him. And so every nurse that walked in, he was very clear. I want my pain medication every 6 hours. I like my sleeping pill at 11 o'clock. I mean, it was like you had it down. And he was still giving us orders, and there was something that he asked me to do that I didn't get why he was asking me to do that. And again, it got really serious. And he looked at me and he goes, you shut up and do what I tell you to do. And I did. And now I understand why he asked me to do that. He knew he wasn't going home. My father's entire life was about 4 things: family, work, food, and politics. And not always in that order. He toiled and sacrificed for his family. We went to Catholic school because he believed it was the only acceptable option. He was incredibly respected in his field. He was known for his wit, his intelligence, so smart it blows you away, his temper, and his fairness. He was generous to a fault, and sometimes he was too trusting of people, and he was betrayed several times in his lifetime, but he eventually forgave those people. That may be why he always taught me you don't ever trust anybody and don't ever put anything in writing. He was the model Republican. He wanted to see Castro fall and Cuba free. He often would wonder if Castro were a little bit better at baseball, maybe things wouldn't have gone the way they went. But I have to say that once he got here, he became as American as any human being can be. He quickly became a citizen. He admired Patton and Reagan and Thatcher. He's probably most disappointed that he won't be able to vote in this election. And we could have had this tomorrow night, but that would have conflicted with the Biden-Ryan debate, and he would have missed his own service to be able to watch that. Now at Servite, we strive to be Christ, see Christ. And as I reflect on my father's life, I realize that that is exactly what he was to everyone he encountered. He gave people what they needed: food, love, guidance, acceptance, respect, a kick in the butt. I mean, whatever it was, He was there for people that he loved. And I am the person I am because of him. I was able to do for him what he needed done out of love. And I had the drive to do it because of him, because he was my papi. I was right there next to him. It didn't matter how long it took. And he would have done it for me. I suspect that he's cooking up there already for the souls in heaven, and he's balanced heaven's books, so they're good. They're balanced. And he's going to do whatever he can to make sure that Romney wins this election, whatever he can pull up there. In the end, after having been Christ to so many, he finally allowed others to be Christ to him. And I honestly believe that this was the lesson that he was to learn in this life. He refused to delegate. He had to be in control, and when he accepted that he couldn't be in control anymore, I think he accepted his death. When we left the nursing home on Sunday night, his last words to me were, "I just want to go to sleep." I didn't realize what he meant until we saw him in the ER. When he wanted to go to sleep, to be free from this pain and this suffering that had been going on for months. He wanted to be with Christ and the Father. So it was. The night before he died, his nurse, JJ, she told us, "Go home." It was a little morbid when we took the tube out. He was laying in the bed. All of us are just standing around the bed watching him. And after about 5 minutes, we realized nothing was happening. You know, he was just there breathing, kind of calmed down a little bit and relaxed. And 10 hours later, his vitals were still better than mine and Carlos's put together. So the nurse told us, "Go home and at least sleep for a few hours. I promise I will call you if anything changes." At 5 o'clock, we got the call that we should get there within a half hour. And 10 minutes after that, we got another call saying we need to get there right now. None of us made it in time. And when we got there, JJ said to me, "I just want you to know that I was with him. And at that moment, your father was my father." And so I held his hand. And I was with him. He wasn't alone. And he went very peacefully. In the end, my father didn't have a lot of money, but he was quite possibly the richest man in the world. He spent his whole